Take two. Conor here from CW's Tech Reviews, back with another video. Today we're doing the Fuji X-T4 versus the Canon 90D for video and pictures from a semi-professional. Now, neither of these are professional cameras, although you could probably get away with it if you were professional. These are both aimed at the semi-pro, the sort of a bit more than a hobbyist. You know, you take your work pretty seriously, but you know, it's a lot of money to fork out for a Canon R5 or your top of the range Fuji camera, which I think the GFX 100 or whatever it's called is currently going for about $10,000. 1DX Mark III is going for about $10,000 in Aussie dollars. So important to point out that this is aimed at the semi-professional mirrorless on the Fuji, Canon, DSLR. Now, just for argument's sake, these are both in exactly the same settings right now, except for the Fuji on this side over here is on 1000 ISO and the Canon is on 400 ISO, and that's because Fuji has different base ISO levels and all that sort of thing. Interesting. Now, if you bought one of these cameras today and you just ripped open the box and started using it, that's going to be your first experience with the camera. You're going to turn it on and you're going to start playing with the camera and trying to get some photos out of it. And so if you've never used one of these cameras before and you just open the box and start using one, I truly believe that the Canon is going to be easier for you to learn. But once you master either one, it doesn't matter. So I just think out of the box, the Canon is a little bit easier to use, a little bit friendlier and easier to set up. But again, like I said, once you start using that Fuji and getting used to it, the menu and all that sort of thing, then it's going to be just as easy. So for that first out-of-box learning experience, it's going to go to the Canon. One little point there to Canon. And I should point out that I am a Canon shooter. So just to remove all bias or insert all bias here, I'm a Canon user. But I can tell you right now that Canon doesn't come out completely on top here. In fact, it struggles in some areas compared to the Fuji. Now, I set this up like this with the microphone here. I know that's distracting, shouldn't be there, but I've set it up like that because I'm currently filming on, the Fuji is on a $3,000 Fuji lens. It's 8 to 16mm f2.8, and the Canon is its $399 10 to 18mm kit lens. So you're gonna see some image differences there. They're both set to autofocus. But I love this lens from Fuji. It's $3,000. The camera is only worth $2,000. It's a killer lens. Really wide angle, so it's quite specialist. I think you're probably better off with something not quite as wide to start off with. But this is why I'm filming like this, just so you can see. And we're gonna flick between some images and we're gonna flick between some video from my day out yesterday in the city where I was shooting video and photo on both cameras. Next thing is the design and build of the cameras. And straight out of the box, again, the Fuji is just looking better. It just looks like a, you know, it's sort of like comparing like a Toyota with a Range Rover, and the Fuji is the Range Rover. It just looks amazing. It looks classy. It's got all the buttons and dials and everything, and that traditional Fuji look to it that just looks awesome. I love it. And the Canon has that traditional Canon look to it, but I don't think looks as good as the Fuji. So straight out of box, if you're looking at just the design and build and the looks especially, I'm going to go with the Fuji. But when I'm holding them, the Canon is better ergonomically. I get a better grip out of it. It's just easier to hold. It's a little bit heavier, so I get more stability out of my shots. And especially for that video, I can do a bit of handheld and get some good footage out of it. Both of them have a flippy screen, which is, you just need that. And I don't know, it's like saying, let's have a car and put an engine in it so we don't have to tow it with horses anymore. And then someone goes, no, I'm gonna leave my car as a horse-drawn cart. It's just stupid, right? And that's the same with flippy screens. People complain about them or say that they're no good. Flippy screens just have to be in cameras. I don't care what anyone says, it just got to be there. From this day forth, we shall only have flippy screens. Now they are both weather sealed, and that's important. You're out and about doing some photography or video work and it starts to rain, you don't want to have to pack up and go home because your $2,000 camera is going to get wet. And I have taken my Canon out and given it an absolute flogging in wet weather, and it has stood the challenge. And I must say that the Fuji is rated to the same level, so it would withstand the same amount of rain, dust, that sort of thing. Now don't go chucking them in the pool, they're not going to survive that. Definitely rain, light rain, medium rain, dust, that sort of thing, but always keep the sensors covered when you're changing your lens. Don't get water or dust on that sensor. Now the Canon does have the LCD screen on the top as you look down, and I find that quite useful. I do find it quite helpful when I'm shooting straight down, or I'm looking down. I might be doing a low shot and I'm looking down at the LCD screen, and it works quite well for me. You do get the same though when you look down on your Fuji, because all the dials have numbers on them, and so you can see what your settings are for the most part. But that was one area where the Canon was easier to use, was having the LCD display on top and the back panel. Now the viewfinders. The Fuji's viewfinder is better, and the Fuji's flippy screen is better looking. And quite often when I was out doing my photography, I thought I was taking better images on the Fuji because that display is so much better. Once I put the photos on the computer, I could barely tell the difference. But on the back of the camera, when looking at my pictures that I just taken, they always look better on the Fuji. And that electronic viewfinder gives you a fairly true representation of your image. So if you're underexposed or overexposed, you can tell by looking through the viewfinder. However, the Canon, I prefer the optical viewfinder. I don't know why, I just do, but I occasionally would over or underexpose because I'm not looking at my exposure meter. Another interesting point, and this sucks balls, but the Fuji does not have a mic jack. Come on. Anyway, I'll get into that later. I'm going to talk about video soon, but first we're going to talk about image quality. And for my day-to-day shooting out in the city, I couldn't see too much of a difference between the image quality when shooting in JPEG. I really think it's going to come down to preference, and I don't think one necessarily excels too far above the other. And an interesting point, on the website cameradecision.com, they actually say that the Fuji is kicking ass in all the specs and takes, has all these reasons why it's better for portraits, better for landscape, better for sports, better for everything. And then they say at the end of the article that they would choose the Canon because image quality is king, and they believe that the Canon has the better image quality. You can be your own judge of that by telling me if you think the Canon or the Fuji is better in your opinion. There's no right or wrong. Keep it friendly in the comments because I'm not about to say that anyone's wrong. If you think the Canon is better, then say so in the comments. If you think the Fuji is better, say so in the comments. And if you think, my comparison's wrong or anything, just keep it respectful, but let me know in the comments. Now, the Fuji can shoot more frames per second. The Canon, it can't. And let's remember, this is a DSLR and a mirrorless. So the mirrorless has 425 autofocus points, and the Canon has 45 autofocus points. But guess who's got the better autofocus? Canon. I love that. I love that Canon has better autofocus with only 45 autofocus points. But the Fuji isn't that far off, and I just think it does a bit too much hunting, where the Canon is more confident in its ability and it grabs a subject and holds on to it. They both have their hiccups though, so it's important to know though that Canon definitely has better autofocus. However, the Fuji has IBIS. And Canon's got this digital stabilization, which in my opinion is rubbish, and it should be better than that. It should be IBIS. Canon seems to think that IBIS is only for the rich photographers or the professional photographers, where Fuji's put it in at the mid-range here and it is much better. So I can actually stop down my shutter speed so that it's quite slow and still get a fairly good image. Whereas with the Canon, I'm going to struggle in that area because I don't have IBIS. So that's a massive plus to Fuji, IBIS. It's better for video, it's better for handheld photography. Now, as I get towards the back end of this video, I'm starting to freak out a little bit because the Fuji camera is running out of battery. Now, both of these had full batteries when I went out to do photography yesterday, and I shot all through the day on both of them. And I come home, and today my Canon says it's still a full battery, and Fuji, the battery is currently flashing on red. So I'm probably not going to get to finish this clip now. But another important thing to note about the battery is that the Fuji can actually charge via USB on the go. So I can take a battery charger with me and plug it in as I'm going. I can be charging and recording and doing photography at the same time. With Canon, you don't need that. 2 batteries will get you through all day of video and photography. Hands down, you don't need to question it. Canon has the better battery life. I think it's 400 shots to like 1,300 on the Canon. So it's miles in front, but again, the Fuji has that uppercut where you can charge it on the go. Canon, lift your game there. Oh, another thing I should mention is that on the Fuji, you actually do have dual SD card slots. Another tick there, big tick for Fuji. All right, let's test the autofocus. Actually, Fuji's holding up all right here. I don't mind that. I'm watching it. It seems to be doing okay as per the flippy screens anyway. Let's talk about video. Fuji has way more options for video. F-Log, I love F-Log. And Canon, why? Again, like Canon holds all these features for its professional photographers and gives us poor little semi-professional guys half-baked features. So we don't get C-Log, and I have to adjust the settings on the Canon camera to get it as close as I can to a flat image so that I can edit in post. But on the Fuji, I can shoot in F-Log and I get this amazing flat image that I can manipulate in post. As you can see from these videos, that the Fuji offers you so much more. I love that F-Log. I think it's amazing. I think with F-Log, I get a better image than I do with Canon. Canon straight out of the box is better. So if you're not really into editing, maybe you might want to stick with Canon. But if you like editing your videos, ooh, Fuji and that F-Log, it's so sweet. But F-Log, no mic jack. I just can't get over that. It's got all these amazing video features like IBIS and F-Log, but then no mic jack. It's got adapters and all that sort of shit, but why would you do that to us? If you're going to give us a camera, give us a mic jack. Everything in the world's got a friggin' mic jack, except for smartphones. But who cares about smartphones? This is about video cameras and being able to shoot some professional images and videos. With those professional videos that you might be filming on this camera, you would prefer to have a straight up mic jack, but you don't get it, but you do on the Canon. You also get a lot more options for filming on the Fuji. So on the Canon, I got 25 frames, 50 frames, 100 frames. And on the Fuji, I have 25, 50, 100, and 200 because I'm filming in that PAL mode. If I was in NTC or in North America, I'd have 24, 30, 60, 120, 240. So if I was in North America on the Canon, I would have 24, 30, 60, and 120. But also in Canon, you just get this one choice for your images and your bitrate. But on Fuji, you get so many more choices for your bitrate, and that can be quite heavy, but you get the choice there to have more data to be able to manipulate your footages in post. With Canon, you don't. Again, out of box, Canon looks better. So, taking all that into account, I prefer, for video, Canon. I don't know why, I can't explain it. I think like in that camera decision said, it's just that image quality is better, and I think it is. And you look at the picture here, you tell me which one you think is better, but I prefer the Canon. Don't forget, in this particular setup, $3,000 lens, $400 lens. A couple other things I want to point out. On Canon, you have 400 lenses to choose from. On Fuji, you don't even have 100. Not that you're ever going to buy 400 lenses, but there's a lot more choice with Canon than there is with Fuji. And the same with third-party accessories. So there's a lot more out there for Canon than there is with Fuji, but I'm loving this X-T4. I think it is an amazing device, and I think I might prefer it for out doing my day-to-day photography. I really do enjoy using it, especially the look of it as well. I think it looks great. I'd like to be able to master the menu system a little bit more. I spent too much time thinking about that, and that is a feeling you're going to get even as a new user. You're going to spend more time figuring out those menus. Whereas with Canon, it's very simple to work through those menus and very easy to go in and change your settings. What are you guys thinking? I actually can't believe how much that Fuji chews through that battery. To go through one battery in the whole time the Canon's gone through maybe 20% of a battery is a bit of a fucking how you going, but that's how it is. Make sure, comments down below. Thank you for watching. I will be doing my 1-year review on both these cameras shortly because it's important to know what they're like after a year, not just straight out of the box. For example, Canon actually didn't have 24 frames per second straight out of the box. They had to update it with a firmware. So it is important to go through time and test the cameras out and see which one's better over time, not just after a couple of days and sending them back. Like, subscribe, all that shit. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate your support, and I will catch you and you in the next video. Check ya.